Good to see you all. Going live on Facebook here. And there we go. Wonderful to see you all. I hope everyone's all right. I need to step over and let me see. Do I have any? I do not have any flow improver sitting out unless that's linen white. That's not what we need. So we'll make do with what we've got. The paint we're going to be using primarily today is this Reaper Tan Skin. This is essentially the middle color of the Reaper set, and this is Reaper 9044. Make sure I've got that in shot there. And like all Reaper paints, you can pick this up just about anywhere. Get it from your FLGS. Get it from your favorite local gaming store. If they don't stock it, ask them to order it for you. Support your favorite local gaming stores. I have become enamored of Army Painter and Vallejo as of late, but I think there's a lot of value, not just color value, but actual value in Reaper paints. Plus, I've got a ton of them. Not really ready to replace them all. Hey, Sam. How are you? So last night, I'm just going to get into this while I get the things prepped here. Last night's AD&D game was really interesting because I thought the party was ready to jump off and start adventuring straight away. But as it happens, they had other things that they wanted to do in the city of Greyhawk before they took off. Which, hunting around for magic items and looking for extra gear and so on was, that's pretty standard and nothing new to report there, right? But the interesting part actually came when the adventure started. Because I had planned... See, I create encounters for my players to give them opportunities. I think we're going to go with this one. To give them opportunities for their characters to level challenges that I may potentially defeat them with. Let's move the camera over here a little bit so you guys can watch me paint. But challenges that they can appreciate, that they can enjoy. And well, last night was no exception. And I thought, this is a party of 11 characters. I would think, because they have handled dragons in the past, that a good old-fashioned dragon's lair on their way to Castle Greyhawk, because they haven't been out in that neck of the woods in a long time. I thought, okay, this is going to be a good... How's that flowing? That's pretty good. This is going to be a good chance for them to have some potential XP on the hoof, right? Well, with all of their men-at-arms holding fast and the paladin thinking quickly and employing his Daern's instant fortress to give them cover. And what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm putting highlights on raised areas where the light is going to be hitting. That's what I'm doing with this. This is tanned skin. And these are all the places where light would primarily be falling on them. So, couple of green dragons. Adult, 50 some hit points each. And if any of my players are watching, you're welcome for giving you that bit of info. But still, for a lot of the characters being breathed on by that could be an insta-kill, regardless of saving throw. There we go. So you can hopefully kind of see some of the highlighting I'm doing. Now here's where things got interesting. The Bard tried a charm. He is capable of using the DOS loot that he has. And that's DOSS, not DOS. Although we did make plenty of jokes about it. I'll get back to you on that character count simile. Simile on YouTube says 11 characters sounds like a big effort to keep it together. Anyway, so the DOS loot gives him a plus 20% chance to charm beings that are not immune to it. And dragons are certainly not immune to being charmed. So the first round goes down. And they get ready, they're clashing weapons together, knocking arrows. As said, the paladin quickly throws down her Daern's Instant Fortress. See, we're just doing slight highlights there. Hopefully that's coming in. You can kind of see the backs of his hands there when that gets into focus. But so they hustle the men and the horses into the fortress, which takes time. But they're undertaking that. People are readying potential spells. I think one of the magic users in the party cast mirror image on himself. It was looking to be quite a fracas. And then, in probably one of the more brilliant role plays moves I've ever seen. Now understand, the party is weighted heavily towards neutral good, but good nonetheless. And these are chaotic evil dragons. Your green dragon is a chaotic evil dragon in AD&D. I don't know what they are in other editions, and I don't care. But in AD&D, they're not nice. The 9th level fighter, in an absolutely sagacious move, employs rule number 1 for successful adventuring as noted in the player's handbook for 1st edition AD&D. I don't know what 2nd edition AD&D, again, don't care. And that is, avoid unnecessary encounters. She immediately parleys with the dragons, not even knowing if the dragons speak, which they did. But she took it in faith that they did. And she's basically said, look, that guy's got to get done in a different shade. She basically said to them, look, we don't want to kill you. We don't want to fight you right now. If there's a pair of you, you're mated, you might have young. You definitely have each other. You may kill a bunch of us, but we're definitely going to kill at least one of you before we go down. She gave him the John Wayne or Richard Boone, depending on whose version you like better, speech from Big Jake. Anything goes wrong, your fault, my fault, nobody's fault, and that boy's gonna die. And that's what she did. So there's 2 dragons. One's in the nest, kind of defending the nest on the ground. The other one, I'm getting ready in flight, in the sky, to do flyby attacks. And that's a thing in AD&D. Don't ever discount AD&D's viciousness. But she is, or rather, one of the dragons is getting ready to swoop down on them and just start wreaking havoc. I didn't roll the 50-50 chance to employ breath weapon. We weren't at that stage yet. That was literally the next thing I was going to check. But she speaks her spiel. I roll the reaction encounter after parley. And I get a 36 for the dragon in the sky. But then I just figured it was probably too far away to hear anyway. Being up in the sky, getting ready to dive down and mince up some characters. Chlorine them to death. Guys, I need you to hang on just a second. I have a canine emergency. He's barking his head off. Hang on 1 second and I'll come back. Thank you everyone for your patience. I am back. So, and I have done the highlights. Now the highlighting is very subtle, so if you're like, Bill, it doesn't look like you did anything. Trust me, it's there. You'll see it at the 3-foot range on your table if you're doing this. Anyway, dragon on the ground rolled like a 56, bellows up to its mate, let these pass. I mean, I didn't tell the characters that was basically what I was saying. Let them pass. If they're going to the old castle, we'll get them on their way back. Or something, something along those lines. I'm doing these 2 guys here. So, instead of fighting 2 adult green dragons, and I might add, potentially winning some not inconsiderable treasure in the process, they instead parlayed and avoided an unnecessary encounter, which is how you correctly AD&D. That's how you do it. You avoid unnecessary encounters. You do not fight when you don't have to. Now, I don't know about later editions. They seem to be more like Fantasy the Avengers, where you just you fight all the time, you fight everything, you know. So I can't really speak to what other editions might do. Then they got to Castle Greyhawk and I started screwing with their heads a little bit. They found in one of the towers of Greyhawk what for all the world looked like a... We'll have to work on Warduke later. I don't have him inked. Although I may come back and ink him. Yeah, that might be what I do. But they found for all the world what looked like a like a, you know, when you go into like a, you know, a 2-star hotel or something like that, they have a little table with brochures of like things to do, and it doesn't matter whatever podunk town you're in, there's things to do, you know. It might be a 75-mile drive from where you're at, but there's things to do. And it's inevitably a little fake marble table with a couple of chairs and a fake plant, like a fake fern or a fake palm or something like that, and a little rack of brochures. And they found something like that, but it was like a Welcome to Castle Greyhawk brochure, and they took one and they started leafing through it, and it was commenting generally on the hazards that they might face. It's like, you may be eaten by monsters, you may be killed by traps, you may perish due to natural hazards. And they're looking at it, and there's all these cartoony illustrations. Now, I didn't do the illustrations because I couldn't draw a straight line, really. And if you've been following this painting, you know that I couldn't paint one either. Hopefully that's coming in focus. I need to bring my OBS up to focus. But yeah, so they start leafing through this brochure, all these cartoony illustrations, kind of in the style of Oglaf, if you're familiar with the Oglaf webcomic. Very, very funny. Very, very often not safe for work or family. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just good D&D fun. But much of the time, it is sex-oriented. It's about like something you might find in heavy metal back in the day. Maybe a little bit stronger. But the art style, I really love the art style. The artist who does it, she also did the storyboards for the film Dark City, which is a fantastic movie. All right. So that's literally all the highlighting with the tanned skin that I wanted to do. So we're going to ink Warduke over there. Well, wash him, not ink him. But anyway. So they're looking at the brochure and they notice that despite the fact that they're cartoony, all of the victims in all of the illustrative things look exactly like them. They have their same equipment, they have their same general features, and they're all dying horribly in the various illustrations. And because there was a lot of shopping and parlaying with the dragons took a while, that's where we left off. So Castle Greyhawk knows them, and It does its best to make them feel welcome. So, but I want to answer Simile's statement. 11 characters sounds like a big effort to keep it together. I've had the fortune of this group growing organically, and plus knowing a lot of the players in it personally. So it does work insofar as the players interact really well. Like, I would not go out and just pick 12 random people to play D&D with, 11 or 12. Although I've done it. I've run games with as many as, oh gosh, at least 14 players at cons before, but a bunch of those were also returning players. But I have run big convention events before. So yeah, you know, it can get to be a handful, I'm not gonna lie. But generally speaking, everyone works together well enough that I don't feel like I'm trying to herd cats, you know? It really does work out. All right, so next up, if you remember this is 9253. This is Reaper Flesh Wash, which is a very good flesh wash. And we're going to jump right in with it. We're going to bring Warduke back to the stage over here. This is just a little mini that I 3D printed up, and it printed up surprisingly well. So many attempts to 3D print character minis, 28mm minis, just don't work out on my 3D printer over here. I'm sort of leaning towards a resin printer, maybe this summer or next fall. All right, let's see. So, I mean, Sam, if you've got the chops as a game master, I don't recommend you dive in with, you know, and say, even if they are friends, try and wrangle a dozen or more players from the outset if you're not comfortable with it. I just am. It just works really well for me. So I don't, you know, I don't have any problem with it. But you know, if that's your jam, then yes, I absolutely recommend running lots and lots of players in your game. It can be a lot of fun, but do use a simpler rule system. The more heads down in character sheets and special cases, you know, oh, my character's got a +5 and my character's got a +3, and it can really, that can be what slows the game down, not the number of players. Like, if I was just running straight AD&D, I would not have a problem running twice as many players. And no, I'm not kidding about that. Let me get this mic over this way. So, yeah. Just, you know, but it's like Clint said, a man's got to know his limitations. And if you don't feel like you can tackle that many, and you're like, but Bill said he can do it. Well, you're not me. You have different considerations. Maybe you want your game to be a little bit more intimate. All right. So we've got him nice and shaded up there. Now, paint's going to behave a little bit differently on an FDM printed mini, primarily because they have vertical or horizontal or some other cardinal angle striations created by the layering of the plastic, even if you're using like a 0.01 millimeter nozzle. So paint does behave a little bit differently. So this did seep down a little bit more, but when I start building up highlight layers, it'll lighten up again. It'll become a little bit more pale. I have the foggiest idea what this guy is supposed to look like. If his other leg there is supposed to be bare or what. I know he's bare-chested, and I know he's got mail covering the other half, but we'll see. Just going to let that go for a minute. Now, I think my highlights on those minis are going to be solid enough, and plus we have plenty of time, that I'm going to be coming through. I'm going to be doing some dry brushing, and I'm going to show that to you guys. And it'll be the last skin tone layer, except for my halfling, which, did I flesh tone him? Yeah, it looks like I flesh washed him. But just as just in a few minutes, let's set Warduke aside. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna start hitting these guys with a dry brush highlight. And what I'm gonna use for that is this tanned highlight. This is 9045 from Reaper. You get that there. And I will be dry brushing, so I'm going to start shaking this up. So running that many players, it's not really an issue. Yes, I'm shaking my pain. I'm not rubbing one out. Like all the jokes. Ha ha ha. Oh my goodness. So Thursday night I'll be playing some Twilight 2000. That'll be fun. Looking forward to doing that. Which, oops. I've talked a lot about Twilight 2000. There it is. Just fell right straight down. I thought it went flying. It's a great post-apocalypse game. I'm not 100% sure I agree with Mr. Finney that it is, oh, you can play Red Dawn. That's not really the premise. You're not teenagers with guns hiding out from the Russians. You're U.S. soldiers with as many resources as you can scrape together, actively fighting toe-to-toe against the Soviets if you want, if that's what if that's what your party wants to do, versus hiding and surviving. So but you can do a Red Dawn scenario with it. You can say, no military backgrounds for the characters, are no military buy points, so nobody gets more than some basic marksmanship stuff. Drop the rads, or maybe give everybody like a minimum bit of rads. Because if you remember, in Red Dawn, it stated that the Soviets did hit a few select cities in the United States with nuclear weapons. So there might be a little bit of fallout, But yeah, just drop the military completely. Give each player a couple of $1,000 and go through the equipment list and say, okay, here's the civilian-esque stuff you can buy, and maybe one or two Soviet things that you scavenged before you scampered into the woods. It's definitely doable Twilight 2000 or Red Dawn situation with the Twilight 2000 rules. Alright, here we go. So we've got some tanned highlight. We're going to put that right there because we already have a blob of water. You can see I've got that next to the white, which is actually a good thing. I want it next to the white for a reason. Now we're going to take this brush, if that's not too I don't know. I think that's a little gummed up with blue. We'll use this guy. Yeah, this is a good dry brush here. Or will I end up scrubbing some paint? Those bristles are a little stiff. What else do we have? Alright, yeah. This guy's a big old fat number 3. So we're going to come in here. We're going to mix that up. You can see that there. But if you've never dry brushed before, it is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to take our brush and we're going to remove almost all of the paint from it. We're just going to leave a little bit. Got too much off there. We're going to leave a little bit of paint color on it. There we go. And we're going to come through and we're going to start hitting just the very tops with these highlight colors, just very faintly. And what that's going to effectively do is put a third layer of highlight, or rather a second layer of highlight just on the uppermost details, on faces and hands and so on. And I'll be using this dry brush highlight technique. In fact, the whole painting technique I've done with the skin, we're going to be using all the way along for everything, for highlighting every color. Did I already get this guy? Let me put him over there because I got him. Yeah, I already got this guy, so we're just gonna and it's where light is naturally falling on raised surfaces. And you just want the faintest of dry brushes for stuff this tiny. So come in here. Now the thing about dry brushes, you have to be careful because depending on how stiff your dry brush is, you could potentially scrub paint off. I've done it before. Just finely sanded paint off, scrubbed it off of the very surfaces that I was hoping to detail. And it's very distressing because then you got to go back and you got to build up layers, particularly if it's just in one tiny spot. That's like, oh, you know? You hate it. You hate to see it happen. Oops. That is the wrong shade. I literally dipped my dry brush into the wrong shade of color. And the thing about the brushes that you dry brush with, they need to, you either need to clean them constantly and reconstitute them all the time, or they just need to be brushes you don't give a shit about because they're going to get blasted, they're going to get blown out, because you're scrubbing them back and forth across the set. Well, you're not scrubbing them, but you get the idea. You want broad, you want the beaker effect on your bristles. You want that. You don't want a fine point. So any brushes you've got that like you actually like a lot, don't dry brush with them because bad things will happen. Let's see, how's our potion sampler doing? He's over here, so we're just gonna come in. And again, this is almost imperceptible initially. But when you see how the highlights make certain tones pop, you're just going to be like, oh, I want to dry brush everything that I paint. And let me tell you something. Dry brushing makes up for a myriad of painting sins. It really does. If you've got a good dry brush going, you've got a very good looking mini there regardless. And that's not to say, don't try. Well, I can fix it in dry brush. Just that if you do see something that you're like, that's not, I don't particularly care for that, at least get it to the stage where you're dry brushing, because you might find that the dry brush brings a lot of things around that you didn't necessarily feel looked all that good. And you don't want to do it too excessively, and you definitely want to make sure it is a dry brush. Because otherwise you're just painting over everything you just did. A couple of questions. Blasted and Blown Out would make for a great band name. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. That's yours. If you want to form a band, I would love to take that. But if you want to form a band called Blasted and Blown Out, it's all up to you, Simile. Ever tried cheap? I intend to get some, Paul. I absolutely intend to get some cheap makeup brushes to do just that. Paul brings up a great point over on YouTube, and that is that cheap makeup brushes that you can buy in bulk, those I give you permission to buy from Amazon. But if you have a beauty supply store nearby you, particularly if it's locally run, not like a Sally's Beauty, because they're just buying their shit from China too, give them your business, but a wide range of makeup brushes. They're soft, they're fine, they're cheap. You don't have to keep recycling them. You can buy a whole bag full for not too much money, a whole box full. And they're so fine and soft that you run a far lesser risk. I'll put you over here. You'll get your own highlight color, bud. You run a far lesser risk of scrub damage to your minis. But yes, highlighting with dry brush is your friend. And there are different degrees of dry brush. You can do like a semi-dry brush where you've got a little bit more paint on there than you would with like a pure dry brush. And that's okay. If you want that heavy of an amount of dry brush, then it's absolutely okay to stick with it. So let's come in here. See, this is a perfect example. If you look here on his knuckles, that's going to look so good. His fingertips and everything, I'm just going to come in and we're going to just dry brush over that. Same with the top of his hand. We're not going to destroy those great highlight details in his face that we just did with that intermediate color, but we're just going to lighten them up. We're just going to lighten up the high points. The High Points, by the way, would be a great R&B band. Something produced by Barry Gordy, or what's his name? The weird afro killed his wife, wound up in prison. Yeah, sorry, I keep leaning back and I mean to stay in shot. But you can see now, this guy is probably the best example. You can really see the highlights coming out on his face and on his hand there. So this is quite a successful dry brushing. And again, I'll be dry brushing everybody. Everybody will get dry brushed, and it'll really make their clothes and their equipment and everything else pop. And I've just got one more guy to do here. Now, I'm not set up for the next amounts of paint. So I'm probably just going to kick back and chill once I get this done. Same thing here. I can just hit the tops of his hands with a little bit of dry brush. His face sticking out from under his iron cap. And it still leaves that highlight in place. And there we go. And if you get your dry brush anywhere, like I'm going to do this on purpose. I'm going to come back and I'm going to, like, let's say I was doing the backs of his legs, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I got dry brush here. It's thin enough, like, it's almost imperceptible. I'm actually struggling to actually dry brush. It was that light. But it's just light enough that your other colors are going to go over it just fine. So in retouching, it'll be okay. Now, spoiler alert, with our two Link boys, our lantern bearer here, who could really just be a good old-fashioned AD&D fighter, not even necessarily hireling. But with our lantern bearer here and our torch-bearing halfling here, dry brush is going to factor in huge in doing fire glow highlights on them. There's another band name for you, Sam. Fire glow highlights. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that up. I think I'm going to redo my palette. This is starting to smell kind of mildewy and moldy. And you don't want that going on your paints, or going into your paints and onto your minis. But I'm going to show you guys an example for those of you who may not have seen this piece or gone back and watched the videos. This is my Demon Idol piece from, of course, the cover of the Player's Handbook. This is a piece done by Otherworld Miniatures. And all of this fire glow is layers of dry brush and semi-dry brush. And just, I started with a heavier in the center and would just work my way out. And I don't like to brag, but honestly, this pops really, really well. Bring that over here. Pull up the OBS, see if you guys are seeing that. But we're going to use the and you can see the thief on his shoulder. He's got some of the same glow going on him. Yeah, that's not the room lighting that's making him look a little whitish yellowish there. That's actually the dry brushing I did. So we're going to get that same effect on the two light source bearing miniatures with dry brush. And you can do it with magic swords. You can a glowing orb. If you're into 40K and you've got like what do you call it, the Terminator guys, Necrons. It's funny. There's guys that look like Terminators in 40K, but they're called Necrons. There's guys called Terminators, but they just look like chunkier Space Marines. So I don't know. But yeah, the Necrons have got that infamous, green glow to their weapons. Same thing. You can do any kind of energy glow or fire glow with some applied dry brushing. Now, some folks do it with an airbrush. I don't have that quite that much skill yet with the airbrushing to feel confident enough to dive in and attack it with airbrush. Phil Spector, thank you, Paul. I was trying to think of Phil Spector. Hello, Elwa. Aloise. I'm terrible with names. Sorry. Space Marines. They hide inside their boxes. Metal boxes. You know, I actually used to be, and I've done reviews on the show of my Space Hulk sets, where I like conceptually, I like a lot of stuff about 40K. I just cannot give money to Games Workshop, man. I can't. I like the memes, I like the lore, but, well, I like the older lore. But they're just, man, Games Workshop, they're an awful company. Although I will say that at the very least, them doing things like updating the Sisters of Battle and bringing back squats is definitely more fan friendly than the shit that they pulled from like 2001, 2002 up until around 2014 or so. Shit like Finecast and you know, attacking people who had Space Marine in their book or project titles. This is like, bitches. Edward Emsh Doc Smith, an American science fiction author in the 1930s, invented the concept of power armor wearing Space Marines, not you guys. And it kind of making things copyrightable. I mean, that's why they don't call them Space Marines anymore. They call them Adeptus Astartes. And, you know, Tau it's a mathematical function, it's a Greek letter, and so on. So they dropped an apostrophe in there. Tau. Eldar is actually a term used by J.R.R. Tolkien originally for elves. So they're now the not Eladrin. That's a Wizards of the Coast elf variant. But yeah, they went through and backed down off of we own the concept of Marines in space, and instead went with you know, our original IP Donut Steel. But I got here some. Oh, I was talking about energy glow or fire glow with dry brush. Yeah, that's definitely something you can do. We're gonna see. You know, we're gonna see it. I mean, you know, the 6-year-old in you says just paint the torch red. Fire is red. Well, no, fire is whitish yellow at its center, like we see here. And it's not really reddish until it's way out at the edges. So you want your hottest, brightest colors in the center, which we'll do with the torch. Now, the lantern's going to be interesting because I haven't really done like fire glow through a substance. And I mean, there's no glass on this guy, but it's a lantern, so it's modeled to look like it's glass panes. So that'll be interesting to do. What I might end up doing is just painting the whole thing the fire color, and then coming in and just with a very fine detail brush and painting in the brass frames for the glass panes in the lantern itself. But we shall see. We shall definitely see. Sam says, oh yeah, going back. Lovely day in my neck of the woods. Good bit of reading done with the R.E. Howard biography by Mark Finn. Have not read that. Let me let me let you guys in on a little secret. If you're with your girl, your significant other, whatever, and they want to watch something romantic, tell them you want to watch a biopic about an author living in rural America in the 1930s and his tumultuous relationship with his girlfriend. And that the movie is called The Whole Wide World. Now, this might not work in current day because she might just grab her phone and Google it up and say, oh no, you ain't pulling that shit on me. But The Whole Wide World is a romantic drama, and it is a film about the later life of Robert E. Howard, and it stars Vincent D'Onofrio as Howard. Let me see. I have to be careful with this keyboard. Sometimes it completely spazzes out and will do things like just start spewing random characters. So, like if I'm typing, and including Control and Alt characters, right? Like I had it once just decide to shut a browser in the middle of a live stream. So let's see. This is a really shit summary of it. But if you go on Wikipedia, this is what it says. It's a 1996 American film directed by Dan Ireland. It depicts the relationship between Pulp Fiction writer Robert E. Howard and schoolteacher Noveline Price Ellis, portrayed by Renee Zellweger. The film was adapted by Michael Scott from Ellis's memoirs, One Who Walked Alone and Day of the Stranger, Further Memories of Robert E. Howard. So it's not just made up stuff. Oh, now this is interesting. So apparently, Olivia d'Abo was considered for the role of Noveline Price. And those of you, of course, who know about Conan the Barbarian, the film series, Olivia d'Abo played Princess Gehenna in Conan the Destroyer. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, that's very interesting. But I do recommend the movie though. Do check it out. So Emily says, "I've seen The Whole Wide World. It was very good." Yeah. It caught me. It took me by surprise. I held off on seeing it for a while because I thought it was going to be kind of silly, like, you know, sort of a fanciful approach to telling the tale of Robert Howard, but it wasn't. I mean, Vincent D'Onofrio is he can do dark really well. He's a very intense actor. I don't give a shit about the person, but man, his acting chops are absolutely top notch. So hats off to Vincent for doing a phenomenal job portraying Howard there. But anyway, that's about it for today. I just wanted to come in and wanted to show off some dry brushing techniques and some highlighting techniques on these guys. I hope you all enjoyed that. Next time, we're going to get into some more colorful painting. What I'll do is we'll put some motley on them. I think we'll start with like maybe some blues. Like decide a few who've got touches of blue on them here and again. And that'll be Thursday. Tomorrow, I am, of course, going to be in the evening live streaming with Kyle. That is in my evening. It might be whatever time in the world for you. But Kyle will be back for Wastrel Wednesday, and we will be playing some first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Kyle will be taking Adequate the Fighter and his small retinue of hirelings and their kobold manservant back to the keep to rest, recuperate, rearm, and refit before heading back to the Caves of Chaos to try storming the lairs of the bad guys again. And then after that, immediately following that, I will be on Jayashiro Finney's live stream, where we'll just talk about RPG stuff, and I'll answer any questions you guys have got. So it'll be a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone, for dipping in today. Paul, good to see you. Eloise, thank you. Samuli, thank you. The folks who watched on Facebook, I saw a couple of reactions there. Thank you. And I did want to mention one thing in passing, in case you missed it. If you're over on Facebook and you're watching this video later, I'm pretty much done with Facebook. The only engagement I will have on Facebook, at least for the time being, will be to stream videos to it. If you private message me on Facebook, I'll respond to your message. But if you tag me in a post, if you mention me in a comment, what have you, I won't be posting things up on Facebook anymore. I will be strictly on reachable through email. You can always email me, bsylvia@gmail.com. And if you want to get a hold of me through text, if you are, that close of a friend, you can always text me. But text, email, whatever, but not Facebook. I'm not doing Facebook anymore. I'm just streaming a video to it periodically. I'll interact with you. Like, if you comment on a video after it's played, I'll respond to that. That's just politeness. Or if you respond, or if you post in the video live stream, that's also I will respond in there. But I'm not wasting any more time on Facebook. So peace to you all. Love you. Thank you for stopping by today. And I will catch you all tomorrow evening